One of four young adults believe AI partners could replace real life romance.
Yeah, so exactly what the topic says. One in four, like Gen Z and young adults, actually think that AI has the potential to replace real life romantic partners. I think it's just like showing how they treat AI. They're using it as their personal therapist, as their companion, and now in a lot of ways as their romantic partner. The crazy part is when older people are surveyed, they view it like way differently. And actually, like half of people under 40, actually, more than half, think it could be threatening or concerning. But then, like, really younger crowd actually believe it could replace even their real life romantic partners. I think it almost depends on age and someone's view of AI. I think we're entering a really weird space of either you're really scared of it and you think it's going to do a lot of harm, or you might marry it and you think it'll replace your actual real life dates.
That's so wild. I mean, I know these companions are becoming more and more like just common, like everybody is having them installed on their devices. It's really interesting to see like them getting younger and younger as well. There's all these like digital friends that are becoming a thing for like, elementary, middle school kids. And so it'll be curious to see like there a progression into something else. Like where does the switching point happen? Like they hit puberty and then now suddenly they like level up to romantic AI campaign. It's kind of a wild thing. They talk about like how porn rewired all these kids' brains, but what happens when the like emotional component is wrapped up into it? Thoughts on where this heads, or do you think like regulation will happen around it? Or what's your thoughts?
It's funny you say that comment too. There's a high correlation in the study that the same people who view AI replacing real life partners are the same ones watching adult type content. So there's a huge correlation of that. I think it heads to a really interesting place where it puts a lot of onus actually on parents. It's almost like the new social media where you have to monitor what your kids do, what apps they have. Because now a lot of these apps aren't even labeled as adult apps. For example, like Grok, which has been proven to show some not suitable for work type content, is only labeled as a 13 plus, as an example. So a teenager can grab this and do some crazy stuff. And I also think with where AI is heading, being open source, safeguards being thrown out the window, I really think there's no stopping it and it becomes like a game of whack a mole. I don't think regulations will keep up. I think there's always an avenue for it and it'll be a lot of education. I actually saw this AI model was fine tuned by a company called Venice AI, which is a decentralized AI company. And they actually show it's like, hey, we completely unhinged AI. And their example is like how to make a nuclear bomb. And they show that their AI will actually answer this in great detail. And this is publicly available right on like Open Router, and you can imagine what it can do with like not explicit and other types of content, like if it's willing to answer questions like that. I think it's, yeah, a lot of ways that these models already exist, and yeah, I think there'll be some regulatory components to it, but the same way that anyone can pretty much access an explicit site, I think it's going to be the same for this too, for better or for worse.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild to see what happens, especially with all the open source stuff. Like you're going to be able to build any of this. But all right, moving on. Let's talk about when AI entrepreneurs pitch A16Z. 80% chance they're using a Chinese open source model. Notes Martin Casado, partner of A16Z. That is a wild stat. What is happening there?
Yeah, I think we went through in a really short amount of time ChatGPT wrappers to Chinese LLM wrappers. So I think there's a couple of things to note. If you're ever pitching A16Z, make sure you're using Chinese LLM to better your chances of getting funding, I guess. And this is one of their heads of AI investing. This is a really important figure within A16's AI investing team. Another part I think it shows is entrepreneurs are getting really smart. And if you want to control the data, control what your model does, you probably don't want to work with closed source models. So then you go into the world of open source. And across the top of the leaderboard, it's all Chinese open source models. Meta is drastically trying to keep up. Other than that, there's Mistral in France. But other than that, there's no real competition on at least the open source side for LLMs. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to create a data compliant product, think like HIPAA and something healthcare related, or you want to ensure that your customers' data is stored in a super compliant way, then you start like, hey, how do I stand up my own LLM? And of course, you want the best, and the best options are coming from China. So I definitely think there's a lot to unpack there when the best, most prominent VC in the world for AI investing is saying, like, this is what we're seeing. And I think the tide turned really, really quickly from everyone on ChatGPT to now 80% of new AI entrepreneurs are actually just building on top of Chinese LLMs.
It's so wild. Is there LLMs in particular that they're using more of? Like, is it ones that, we're not even really talking about a lot in the US?
Yeah, great question. So on DeepSeek is the best like ChatGPT equivalent for like general intelligence. Quen has proven to be really great at like technical tasks, and like coding as an example. And Quen is backed by Alibaba. For video generation, Kling is a really, really powerful, incredible model. I believe they have an image generation too, but it's primarily known for video. And ByteDance, which is TikTok's parent company, has actually released some open source video models as well. And I would bet that theirs are going to be really, really good given how much data they have to train on with all the TikToks posted on their platform. So
It's crazy.
you got options, but you can essentially recreate your closed source stack to an open source stack. I actually have a slide on this. I do it for a lot of sales meetings. I'm like, here's the closed source stack, like what you know and love. You don't even have to worry about it. The open source stack for each one of these categories is the one you actually have to worry about because those are completely, there's no safeguards, there's no restrictions behind them. And this is what actually bad actors are using.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's going to be really interesting to see, like, again, this open versus closed source kind of, again, East versus West. We said one of the last episodes, but it feels like that same narrative continues on in all of this news. But okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
I think for builders, like and entrepreneurs, I think open source actually wins. I think it just, even at 99% of the quality, but you typically are getting a discount in the price and more control over the flow of data going through it and control for your product and like stability where you don't get like GPT-4 ripped out from under you.
Yep.
I think they will value that a lot higher. And I actually think the closed source becomes like a lot closer to like the companion type stuff. Like even I think Sam Altman has even said this publicly, like of how people use it. It's almost like their operating system for life. And I think it's almost like the personalization. It's like the new Google search of like how personalized it is on a per person basis. I think that's where the closed source models and like the chatbots win. But for builders, I think it's if it seems like it's already happening now, and it's only a matter of time before like open source like really wins for control, price, and just stability and customization. And those are the things that builders really value.
Totally. I mean, if you just kind of take this as far as you can as well, right? Like, we create a infinitely more smart thing than the average human, and like the open source version is 99% of that closed source. Like, you're still going to be a margin that's way higher than what the average person is. So it's still going to be like a way more effective tool or a workforce or whatever it is that it ends up happening. So, I mean, the logic there is just pretty obvious. That's where it ends up. It's like, of course, open source is going to win if it keeps going at the pace that it is, unless there's some quantum leap that happens and close. I feel like the only way that they can do that, but they're bridging the gap so fast, if not performing better. Like Kling is unbelievable. I've used it to even see it in action.
And it's 100% open source. Like VO3 is crazy expensive.
Totally.
It's like $1 for like I think like 15 to 30 seconds. You're paying dollars versus if you have a powerful enough rig, you can run this thing, yeah, ad nauseum. But yeah, I don't think this goes away. I think the other, I don't know if it's a dirty secret, but or like a poorly kept secret, but small models built for really specific tasks will outperform large general models. So you combine like small open source models trained to like the specific thing that a company or what you're trying to do, it will be your general super expensive, closed source that AI model.
It's again, it's just so obvious what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on. So Elon Musk's XAI sued Apple and OpenAI, alleging the companies are legally throttling competition for AI companies, and OpenAI is the only generative AI chatbot that benefits from billions of users. Prompts originating from hundreds of millions of iPhones. What's happening there? I know that this dialogue or this shakedown has been kind of going on in both, I feel like been jabs by both parties on social media. I know we've talked about this a lot, but like XAI feels almost like a not safe for work app, which I feel like is the reason that this is happening. But I'm curious to learn kind of what's going on there and what are your thoughts based on it. Yeah, that's going on behind the scenes. So fascinating. I feel like he still has a vendetta, and that's like what's happening here. It's just like the continuation of getting how he feels he's been hurt by Sam. So, anyways, all right. Cool. Moving on to the next one. So, U.S. government takes a 10% stake in Intel. This is insane to me. The fact that they're doing this feels very Cold War. But anyway, yeah, what's happening here? That's crazy. I just keep coming back to like there's these signals of large government investment into these categories at a scale that we've never seen before. It feels like a wartime scale. So, it's kind of fascinating to see this happen. So, any thoughts on where you believe this ends up, like from a I'm just thinking about like, do they invest in these other companies? I know they're already putting a bunch of money up for all the data centers. Do you think this just goes even deeper, or where do you believe this goes? Yeah, I think the argument a lot with a lot of this is like this is the only way to compete in the AI race. If these other countries are investing at this capacity, like we have to do something that like allows for our private organizations to like, compete, with governments. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 years. But awesome, man. I think that's good.